it is easy for, again, a church to support you, but just sending a check, that's all the involvement. And you become distant. It's like another missionary on your wall, but you don't know these people. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know the struggles. You don't know the pain. I think sometimes there's a chasm that can easily be created with missionaries in their local church because of that, distant relationship, not just geographically, but in other ways.
Welcome to the Serve Him Well podcast, episode 12. My name is Jeff Banks.
And I'm Dana Banks.
And we are so glad that you are with us.
Yes, we are so excited to welcome back Jerry Singh to the podcast today.
Indeed.
He was with us for our previous episode, and his wife Kathy joins him to talk about how the local church can strengthen partnerships with their missionaries.
That's right, Dana. I just loved being able to sit down and have this conversation with Jerry and Kathy. Really appreciated how open, honest, vulnerable that both of them were as they share about some of the joys and the challenges that they face. And they provide some really good insights into their ministry and how churches can come alongside.
Yep. And to those who are listening, if you didn't get a chance to hear Jerry's story in our previous episode, I recommend you go back and listen to what I guess we can call it part 1.
Right.
Yeah, it's Jerry's testimony.
Yeah, be sure to listen to that first episode, and then you can move on to part 2 and continue with our missionary focus.
Yeah, Jeff, so we have both been on short-term mission trips in the past.
Yeah.
What is one of your favorite mission trips you have been on, and why?
Well, that's a tough question, babe. I have so many great memories of each trip that we had the opportunity to take, whether that was when we were doing youth ministry. We also had the chance to go and minister with Jerry and Kathy Singh in South Dakota. One that sticks out, of course, is when I had the chance to go with our son Brandon when we went to Haiti, and we were partnering with missionaries that we supported when I was pastoring the church in Iowa. So that was really special to be able to go and be on site. You know, when the Wilsons would come to Cornerstone and visit us, it was always unique, them bringing their stories to us. So then it was great to go there, to take a team and go meet them where they live and to experience all that they experience. And just so many great memories. And I think what was really unique and special about that trip is the humility and the great contentment of the believers there in Haiti who didn't have much at all. And yet the joy of the Lord and their contentment in Him to provide all that they needed. And I had the opportunity to train some young pastors and just so humbled that some of them walked for hours just to come to the training. And so that was just a real privilege, a real joy, and very special. I'll never forget it. How about you, Dana? What was one of your favorite memories of a mission trip?
Well, I haven't been on as many as you, but you mentioned that we took trips to Mexico with our youth students back in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah.
And I just have great memories from all of those trips. I think one of my favorite things about those trips was watching the youth just blossom in their faith and their confidence to share the gospel. And
yes.
Actually, Kathy touches on that in the interview today when she shares that one of her greatest joys is watching the people that she helped train lead someone to the Lord. So I think I can relate to that in a way. When I was just out of high school, I took a missions trip, and we were overseas in Poland, and we were required to eat whatever was put in front of us.
Sure.
And so I kid you not, they put this whole plate of sauerkraut, giant plate of sauerkraut loaded a couple inches high at least with this gigantic sausage on top.
Yeah.
And I hate sauerkraut. That's something that doesn't sit well with me. And I did get the whole thing eaten. I think I cried afterwards, and it was very traumatic for a teenage girl. So
what you're saying is there will be no sauerkraut in any of our near future dinners?
No, and there never has been the last whatever. We just celebrated 26 years.
Yes.
And you've never had sauerkraut.
I don't think you've ever made me sauerkraut. I usually have that when I'm camping, but I like sauerkraut. It's good.
You won't be seeing it at our table.
No worries. No worries.
So, all that to say, for those who are listening, take the opportunity to go on a missions trip. I guarantee your heart for the lost will grow and you will be challenged in so many ways.
That is so true. Well, Jerry and Kathy both talk about the importance of churches sending out groups of people from their church to go on short-term trips, and with the missionaries, especially with the missionaries that they support. And again, it builds into that theme that they're going to talk about these partnerships that churches can have with their missionaries. So let's get started now and listen to my interview with Jerry and Kathy Singh. Welcome to the Serving Well podcast, and it's a joy to sit down and have a conversation with our friends Jerry and Kathy Singh. Hi, Jerry. Hi, Kathy. Welcome.
Hey, thank you.
Well, today we want to talk about something that's pretty near and dear to my heart. As a pastor, I want to cast a vision when it comes to missions in the local church, to see true partnerships, to build relationships and to have a philosophy of a missions ministry that would promote a partnership. And Jerry and I just began to touch on that in our last episode, and we want to dive into that a little bit deeper today and talk about some practical issues related to that, and really want to get your wisdom and insight into that as you guys have been serving the Lord. But before we do that, just in case some of our listeners today didn't catch our last episode, could you give us just a brief overview of One-Way Evangelistic Ministries? Tell us a little bit about your vision, your mission, and what God has done through you over the years as you've served Him together.
All right. Well, again, we're excited to share a little bit about what God has been doing in our lives and about the ministry we're involved with. One-Way Evangelistic Ministry is something that God placed in our hearts many years ago. It's all about reaching the lost. That's the vision. That's a primary purpose. It's about reaching the lost with a sense of urgency, a sense of passion, a sense of balance, and using different methods in order to accomplish that. So as we talked in the last session, we're involved in work locally. We use the Acts 1:8 principle. We're involved locally here in Cheyenne, in different aspects of jail and college and nursing homes, so forth. We do work nationally around the United States, and particularly among the Lakota Indians. And we do have a team that we bring from the West Indies to join us to help accomplish that goal, where we are able to go into the prisons and all over the inner cities and different cities and so forth. We also do work around the world. We've been in India. We do work in South America. In fact, we just ended a trip not too long ago in Guyana, South America, and also in Trinidad in the West Indies. So the whole idea and the vision and the purpose is about the gospel message. It's taking and making absolutely clear that that Jesus Christ is the only way that we can be saved. So that's the idea.
Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate that. In our last episode, we get to hear a little bit of Jerry's story, or a lot of Jerry's story. And so, Kathy, I wanted to give you the opportunity to share a little bit about how God's worked in your life, how you came to faith, and then also how you met Jerry and sensed that the Lord was linking you both up to serve together in ministry. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yikes, that's a lot of one question there.
That is a lot in one question. Yes.
Yes. Well, like Jerry, I am also a first-generation Christian. I was raised pretty much believing that if I was good, I'd go to heaven, and if I was bad, I'd go to hell. Pretty clear cut, except for that it wasn't. So for me, it took going to Australia. In college, I did independent studies there and stayed with a host family. And they loved me to the Lord. And, with this mindset of being good, I came up with good excuses not to go to church because I really wasn't so interested in it. But they were persistent. And my host sister eventually asked me to go to a Christian music camp, which was definitely more appealing to me at the time. I'd be with my friends, and there'd be music.
Yes.
And there'd be foreign boys.
Probably so.
So maybe with the wrong motive, I went there. And it was there that I really learned that it wasn't about me being good. And I would never be good enough. It was really about what was done on the cross for me by Jesus Christ. And it was there that I accepted the Lord Jesus Christ as my Savior. After that, I came back to the United States hungry for fellowship, and I didn't know where to find it. Eventually, I found a home church where new tribe missionary students were attending. They invited me to come to their fellowship night at the school, and I went. And when I went in, there was a mighty fine foreign boy. Remember I mentioned foreign boys?
Yes.
Foreign boy leading that night. And by the end of the evening, he came around and he, said good evening to everyone. And I was the very last person that he came to say hi to. And so I asked him out. And, you heard Jerry's testimony and his culture. Let's just say we were definitely culturally opposite at the point. I was raised as a feminist, and he was raised to be the next guru, the next Hindu priest in his family. So he did say yes.
Wow. So, hey.
Unless you think that I was the aggressive one in this situation, I would like to point out to you that on that very first date, he's the one who slipped in the tape, Finding the Right Mate by Chuck Swindoll.
Wow. Very smooth, Jerry. Very smooth.
Gotta plan ahead, bro.
Good planning.
The curve here.
That's exactly right. That's hilarious.
So, long story short, we ended up, obviously, married, and we were at Frontier School of the Bible, and that's kind of the beginning of our story before we had 3 kids, and that's another story in and of itself.
Well, and it's a great transition because I know your ministry hasn't just been Jerry and Kathy Singh, that your family has been involved. So talk about that from that unique perspective, a commitment from your entire family and how you would do ministry together.
I would say that missions and ministry is what our kids have always known. When you're raised, you kind of think that everyone's family is just like yours.
Yeah. So
that's what they kind of knew as the norm. And they would give up their summers, not that they were giving them up because they were being told this is what we're doing as a family. They would come on the mission trips with us. They would go international. They would go across the United States. Wherever we were, they were with us. And I think that was really the foundation for them to be who they are today. I mean, we've been very, very blessed. It hasn't been easy, and there have been road bumps.
Sure.
But God has been faithful.
So let's talk about some of the greatest joys that you have experienced as God's used you in your ministry.
For me, and Kathy shared the same thing. We're first generation Christians, and I tell you, having a Christian family was perhaps one of the greatest joys for us, because it's starting a new legacy.
Yeah.
It's as I look back, I look at generations and generations of the chains of bondage and idolatry and darkness, and God broke that chain. Another joy, I guess, for us is just seeing lives change. Having being able to go share the gospel, and God does the saving. We don't know anything about that, but when people actually respond in front of you, it's just incredible. That's for me and for my wife. It's one of the greatest joys that we have in serving together and seeing people respond. The other thing is to see partnership, as we talked about that earlier, people who believe in what we're doing, who catch the vision, who choose to come alongside.
One of the other joys that we have is we get to train the team members to go on these trips and to get to see them lead others to the Lord. And I mean, it's exciting to lead someone to the Lord. It is even more exciting to see somebody that you trained get to do that as well. And we just get to rejoice with them. And then we get to do what we love every single day. It's such a blessing, and we represent not only the Lord, but we represent our partners in ministry, and we don't take that lightly. It's a big responsibility and a calling.
Well, I've always appreciated the joy that I've seen in you over the years, and of course that happens in circumstances sometimes that are hard and difficult, and we need to talk about that as well. We find joy regardless of our circumstances, but we want to help people in the local church understand some of the unique challenges that missionaries face. So from your experience, tell us some of those things, those challenges that you've faced, and so that we can have just a better understanding from someone that's lived it for so many years.
There are a lot of challenges that we face. One is keeping up with technology. It's really hard to keep up with technology. Both Jerry and I went to college when, it was typewriters. But we live in such a neat age where the technology is so powerful that we need to be able to use it. But we feel like we're in way over our heads a lot of the time.
A couple other unique challenges that we face is we're living in a kind of a performance-driven culture in ministry, where you have to. There's pressure to perform. And if you go on a mission trip, they expect 500 to get saved. If you go on whatever you're doing, that people are expecting results in a way they would like it. When I just reading and studying the lives of men like Hudson Taylor and William Carey and all these guys, and the years that they served and the results, it was seemingly there was nothing, but it was a process of time and failures and triumphs, but so some of those unique challenges, it comes in that whole idea of the pressure to perform. I need to be careful of that. I feel like in that there's that when that pressure is on you, there's a sometimes it's hard to be transparent about your struggles. It's hard to be able to expose yourself, become vulnerable with your personal life and some of the things that you're facing in your family or your finances, and so those are some of the things that I feel like it's huge. I also feel like because of that, there's that we need to be careful with the challenge of avoiding distant relationship with supporters in particular. It is easy for, again, a church to support you, but just sending a check, that's all the involvement. And you become distant. It's like another missionary on your wall, but you don't know these people. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know the struggles. You don't know the pain. I think sometimes there's a chasm that can easily be created with missionaries and their local church because of that, distant relationship. Not just geographically, but in other ways.
One of the other struggles that we face is that all of what we receive are gifts of support, love support, that God has laid on others to partner with us. And that can come and go. And that is a challenge for us every single month, because we have an idea what will be coming in, but there's no guarantee that it'll be there.
Well, I appreciate your vulnerability about those challenges across the board, and as we transition and talk about this relational piece, Jerry, you kind of mentioned that again with distance, and it's something that's near to my heart, and I always want to talk more about this aspect of being relational, building a relationship, having a partnership with the missionaries that we support, especially in the context of the local church. Can you give us your philosophy on what the relationship should look like between missionaries and the churches that are supporting you?
There's so many powerful questions you're asking here. That's a broad one, also a philosophy in ministry. And one of the things that I feel like, again, we've touched on it, and I think we're building on it, is the strength in partnership. Okay, that is just something that I believe that can create difficulties for as people come into the church and as they leave and new people come in, sometimes they don't know they're missionaries, and there's a gap. And so I believe the strength in your partnership need to be fresh. And perhaps it's the role of the missions department or the leadership. I don't know how to communicate that to the church. But as a result of the strength of that partnership, I think there's tremendous encouragement. Again, also in not just for the church itself, but for us as missionaries. It confirms the vision, and our vision is sharpened when that strength is seen. I think it provides protection, all right, in terms of there's a lot of craziness going on out there. You go into different places, and when we travel and go into different countries, some of the teaching is just not biblical. It's just absolutely way off. It has nothing to do with the Bible, but with experience and false teaching. I think that partnership with the local church helps protect us and what we and who we represent, and making sure that we are we stay within the fundamentals of what the Bible teaches. So there's protection in that. It builds a genuine relationship and friendship with the local church and long-term relationship with individuals. I also feel it provides an outlet for practical ministry for the local church. Again, that's part of the strength of the partnership, where we have mission trips going on. We're able to share with our local church, and so many of them have come and they're going on these trips, and that is reproducing itself over and over again every time that outlet is presented. All right, and the other thing is that it replenishes the missionary, and that's what synergy is all about, in the local church. It's just that strength and a combination of things going on. So that's the one thing, the strength in partnership. The other one is passion for the lost. I just feel like that is the whole philosophy of the ministry. That's what it's about. It's about that passion that and it's fresh in front of us. It's it's just a vision right in front of us about praying for the lost and so on. So that whole idea, the philosophy of ministry, we're driven by that, and it draws us not only closer to God, but and to our vision, but also to the local church. And I think when that is communicated clearly and people make the effort to become part of that, I tell you what, that's a winning formula. That's quite the weapon there.
I appreciate you sharing that, and I think as we talk about that from your side as missionaries, and then if you think about it from my side as a pastor of a local church, and not that I've ever done this perfectly in my pastorates, and even as I've just recently transitioned to back to pastoral ministry in a new local church, I think this is my aim. This is my focus. It's a goal of wanting to. I think leadership needs to take the lead in kind of modeling this, casting a vision for that kind of relational aspect, and then letting that seep into the culture. I think that would be, just as you said, I think it's so easy in the local church for it to be regulated to just faces on a wall that we really don't know. And then also, that's just what the missions committee does, or that's what the missions team does, but it seems disjointed from everything. And so we want to, hopefully, it would be encouraging just for me personally, in as a pastor of my own local church, but for other pastors, for other ministry leaders in a local church, to see that it is a partnership, and that it's a part of the grand overall mission, that when we partner with missions, if we're trying to make disciples, if that's what the church is trying to do, then partnering with our missionaries is one important way that we're fulfilling our mission as a local church. And so that's the dream, that's the vision, and so it's just the task now of, nuts and bolts and getting in there and letting that drip and seep into the culture. And so that's what I pray about and want to see happen, in my local church, but then would love that to happen in other local churches for anyone that's dialed in and listening today. It would be important.
It's so critical, because we need to have another generation of missionaries to step in behind us. Jerry and I, actually, we're kind of, rounding the corner here. And it's happening with a lot of missionaries out there. And the local church is the one where we need to be raising the next group to send out.
That's very, very well said. And I love that. That's a picture we could talk about as well of raising up leaders, raising up missionaries, and sending them out for the next generation. Yeah, that's got to be a vital part of disciple making for us. As you guys think about your life, could you tell us and just give us 2-3 things what are some of the most uplifting, encouraging things or ways you've seen churches live this out, be relational, and have that with you? What? I just love some practical, just tangible pictures of when that's done well and how that's been manifested in your lives.
Well, one of my favorites is when we get to team up with the church members on mission trips. When the church actually sends team members, it does amazing things for us as missionaries to encourage. It is powerful in the work, but then they get to come home with a passion for missions that's going to affect the local church body.
Yeah, I agree with Kathy. And a couple of examples of that. We have one of our supporting churches in Pine Bluff, Wyoming. The pastor came with us on a few trips to South America. I know he's leading trips to Haiti and other places, and it just reproduces itself. And they caught the vision. It was cast the vision. They caught the vision. They're doing it themselves, and that's what it's all about. Same thing with our church here in Cheyenne, Calvary Chapel. A lot of the people go with us on these mission trips, and now they've sort of implemented that into the Sunday morning service, where there's a section in there. They highlight a missionary every week and pray for them, missionaries locally and internationally, and so forth. There's that whole idea of casting the vision during the service, getting a sense of a pulse of missions around the world.
That's really good. Kathy, one question for you specifically, just as a missionary wife, a mother, and navigating that through the years, how have churches supported you? How can they support you in your unique role as a missionary wife and a mother, and even supporting your children? What does that look like?
That is a hard question. You're hitting right to the heart there, Jeff. It is a hard question for me. The most powerful thing is to pray. Pray for us and our family, remembering the struggles that you yourself go through. We go through those as well. When you ask about the kids, anything that you can do to bless our kids is a blessing to my heart. They have given up a lot. They are not your they are typical teens, and yet at the same time, they have the reins of missionaries around their neck at the same time. So it's been hard for them. And, we feel like we live in a glass bubble sometimes because we are very transparent. And we try to be, because we want everyone to know that we're just people. We're just like you. We're doing what God has called us to do. I would ask that you pray for God to direct how to encourage us, because I do not want to limit anyone with my mindset of what would be encouraging. God is the one who knows what would be best for us. And if you want to know what's best, ask God, and He can direct.
That's great. Thank you so much. So I want to get even more practical and just keep drilling down here to the heart of this partnership idea. And so if you were talking to pastor of a local church, maybe you're sitting in front of a missions team that has the leadership role of overseeing missions in the local church, would love to hear from you a list of things to do and things not to do, kind of the do's and don'ts. And so let's start with the things not to do. In your experience as missionaries and churches have ideas and come up with things of what this relationship's going to look like or not look like, what are some things that aren't as helpful as maybe they would think, and just kind of this is not a good thing to do? Are there anything that comes to your mind on that list?
one of the things that I want to encourage people not to do is not assuming that don't assume everything is okay. These are missionaries on the field. Things are great, and I feel like we discussed earlier the challenges of missionaries and missionary work. That there's just a lot of things going on there that we need to be careful. Out of that, you sometimes working with people, sometimes the end result, you can go different directions. People can have different opinions or absolutely disagree, and then people are not walking with the Lord, start saying things that's not right or not godly. There's one thing that I would appreciate so much, and is just you don't poorly ignore protocol in how you address or how you go toward whatever you may be hearing as a missionary. And for me personally, that has hit me hard. And there was a period where I felt like, wow, I don't know if I can continue on here, because people or church from the outside, whether they call in or do whatever, make a judgment call and have absolutely no idea, nothing, and take actions based upon that. When we as missionaries, we have surrounded ourselves with people we are accountable to, who are so close to us, who we built a team around us, that at least you can come to the team and find things out and go from there. But when someone comes from way outside without following protocol, that's a devastating thing. For me as a leader, I just feel like that one, it hits home. And anyway, so just assuming everything is okay, just poorly ignoring protocol. And the other thing that the not to do is don't ignore missionary kids. That is huge. Our children, Kathy mentioned some of the things that we've had to go through, and I tell you what, our kids have, they see their buddies in school driving their car or the clothes or having the iPod, all these different things, and they can't afford things, and it's these are things that they're struggling with, and you've gone through that too, Jeff. And how do you handle their own personal, private issues? I read about Billy Sunday and all these guys, and whose son committed suicide as a result of, I don't have anything to do with that ministry because of what they did to my dad or my mom. Franklin Graham, we know his story, and just these things. These are real things that missionary kids go through. We need to be careful. Don't make judgment calls and ignore the kids when their lives are affected deeply in all these matters.
Thanks for your vulnerability on that as well. And so let's turn it positive. What's helpful? What should they do? What would you encourage churches to jump all over that turns out to be very helpful, uplifting, encouraging?
Well, one thing, we come to visit the church, and the spotlight is typically on us, and we're answering the questions and we're telling the stories, but we really want to know about you. We want to know how to pray for you. We want to hear what God's doing in your life, your testimony. We hear ourselves all the time. And sometimes it's very lonely for us as missionaries. We want to have the connection of knowing what's going on in other people's lives too.
Well, again, as practical as practical involvement, I guess I want to point to. These are things that normally happen, but I think communication, whether it's through email, phone, texting, Skype, WhatsApp, or actually visit the missionary, that's incredibly huge. And there have been people, the churches who are supporting us, they would send people in our area just to come and be with us, and just to see how we're doing and pray with us. I think that's something that don't normally happen. It has happened with us for a number of people, but I encourage the local church to do that, especially with the visiting part. The other part is we haven't had this, but assisting with furloughs, for instance. We have our missionary just came back, and we're trying to come alongside him on where to situate and how to help him, help him with things that he's gone for 15 years, and how to be able to acclimate and So assistance is needed with that. Yeah, we're trying to help them with a vehicle, all these different. But you know what? In our case, I tell you, Jeff, and I don't know if if it's the right place for me to say this, but it's been so long. We really haven't had a vacation. We really haven't had, and that's not good. I'm vulnerable right here with this. We need that. We read about burnout. We read about all these things, but it seems like it's unending. We don't have the funds for that. We just don't. And sometimes we feel the best thing is if we just continue doing what we're doing, until something happens. But the local church don't know that, hey, there are ways that you can come alongside. And I think that's, again, on a practical level. I don't want to underestimate this other one, but to listen fervently. Again, you can hear the talks, you can hear what you want to hear, and you can hear the missionary talk, but I think deep down inside, there are things that comes out between the lines that we need to listen to what the missionary is saying, because there are deep issues that people have happen with people on the field, with kids, with finances, with relationships, with health, all these things, and we're not talking about it. And these are pains that I feel like missionaries bear that burden. And it's not like, we've gone to places where people would say, hey, brother, if you have a need, let me know. And we do, but if people really want to help or want to be involved, there's a step to take in that. And it's kind of getting a little bit more personal than saying, I believe James talked about that. Just listen fervently, and just being involved in the. We have so many opportunities, great opportunities. We have about 4 mission trips for the year, and we're sending out information. If you guys want to be a part of this, what an opportunity! Not just to come see how the missionary live, but to see where they are most effective, where the impact of what God's call upon their lives is all about, where they're being used. What a way to see that! All around, it's a very powerful thing to be involved. Even the mission trip that is provided by the missions team that you support. Those are some of the practical involvement. Church reports, again, we would love to come to your local church and give a report. We're writing letters, we're doing all that we can, but a phone call of, hey, Jerry, Cabby, please come. We'd like you guys to tell us what's going on, face to face, eyeball to eyeball. We'd love to do that, but that's not something that we can press. And some of our supporters allow us to do that, and so that's another thing that we're excited about. And lastly, it's about prayer, just praying for us, and not just praying for the missionary, but letting the missionary know that you're praying for them.
So to piggyback off of Jerry and the church visit, another thing that would be, this is as practical as you can get, that would be really helpful for us, is that when we come out to visit, if the church could help by setting up small gatherings where we can sit down with people and have some real conversations, whether it's over lunch or coffee, desserts, even a game night, that would be a blast. But the ugly in me might show up because I'm very competitive, but that's okay. You can see that. Mm-hmm. It would just be really good to build those relationships in a smaller setting than being up in the front of the church and giving the report. We want to connect with you guys. And then I'd say one of the easiest ways to encourage us is to let us know that you have received our update and that you've read it. We sent out in the last week a huge mailing of what's going on in the ministry. I can't tell you how many hours that newsletter represents, but it represents not only the work of putting the newsletter together, but it represents the work of the ministry. Mm-hmm. So that's an easy way. Just even if it's a thumbs up, anything that we know that the mail's getting through, that would be helpful.
Well, I really appreciate this. I mean, just the honesty, and I think that just being candid to talk about some things that we probably don't talk about much. We probably don't address them enough on both sides, and that's part of the vision for even having this conversation with you, is that we on our side of people in the local church can have a glimpse of that and a deeper understanding of some of these things. And the hope is, whether it's pastors or a missions team or whoever is responsible for that, not that things can automatically just be completely transformed overnight, but maybe over time, just as we begin to put one step in front of the other and implement some of these things, that would deepen partnerships, and there would be a mutual edification that comes with the partnership. And I think that's, for me, that's the beauty of the gospel. And that is, when I read the New Testament and see how relational Paul is when he's writing back to many of the churches, and his desire to stop and see them, and then him thanking them for support. And so I want to see that flourished, not only for me, but for others in the local church. I think that would be just a tremendous blessing. It really would be. I want to thank you again for your time, and what a joy to sit down and reconnect and hear your hearts and be a part of these practical things and this discussion. Is there one thing you want to leave us with as before we go in the context of just missions and the local church? Would love to let you have the last word.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Jeff, for allowing us to share with you. I think we kind of went a little bit beyond what we had expected. You kept using the word being vulnerable, and I appreciate that you've allowed us to do so. Yeah. We ask you to pray for us. I especially ask you to pray for my wife and her health, and pray for our kids and for myself too, and with all these challenges ahead of us. But you know what? We're excited. We're excited what God is doing. And one of my mentors shared with me many years ago is to align yourself with people who celebrate your vision. And, it's been a joy to do that with you and so many others who have come alongside us. So thank you for being part of our vision and part of our team.
You bet. Well, it's been a joy, and thank you again so much for your time, for both of you, and look forward to continuing to hear and see God work in and through you both, your family, and that an ongoing partnership, in the local church with us, and then beyond, would continue to flourish, and that all of this would be for God's glory, and the hope of the gospel would be proclaimed. So thank you so much again for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks.